The U.S. chemical giant DuPont reported lower third-quarter earnings this morning, hurt by hurricane-related charges and lower volume shipments in the U.S. and Europe. DuPont said this morning that net income fell to $367 million, down from $526 million a year earlier. The chemical maker also cut its earnings forecast for 2008 to $3.25 a share, down from $3.45 a share. According to MarketWatch, DuPont in recent quarters has been hurt by the slump in the U.S. housing and automotive markets. DuPont makes products that range from seeds to electronics and from paints to protective gear. Bond insurers, including AMBAC and MBIA, are meeting today in New York with regulators in an effort to map out a way for the bond sector, the bond insurance sector, to tap into the U.S. government's $700 billion financial bailout plan. The meeting comes as bond insurers continue to face potential credit rating downgrades, which could require them to come up with billions of dollars of extra collateral payments. At this point, according to Sean Dilwig, Wisconsin's insurance commissioner, whose department regulates AMBAC, at this point the commissioner said, "We're trying to determine if there are some common approaches from the bond insurers that we can present to the Treasury Department." The meeting follows last week's announcement by Treasury Secretary Paulson to inject $125 billion of capital into 9 of the largest U.S. banks and another potentially $125 billion into other financial companies. The plans for the capital injections followed the approval of the big rescue package that was passed by Congress last year. According to the Wisconsin commissioner, it's possible that helping the bond insurers could alleviate broader concerns about collateralized debt obligations around the country, which means that helping bond insurers could then give the Treasury a lot of bang for its buck. The meetings will be held at the offices of New York insurance regulators. Eric Dinello, New York superintendent, is also expected to attend. Dinello, whose department regulates MBIA, has been spearheading efforts to alleviate the bond insurer crisis. And also, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the NAIC, is exploring whether or not it should expand its financial rating system over the issue of derivative valuations and their effect on insurers. Ms. Sandy Prager, president of the organization and the state insurance commissioner of Kansas, says some insurance companies have been downgraded by rating firms because their investments in derivatives have been given high marks for safety by the same firms. Let me make sure I correct that. She says that some companies have been downgraded by the ratings firms because of their investments in derivatives that have been given high marks for safety by some firms, which include Moody's, Fitch, AM Best, and Standard & Poor's. She went on to say the insurers are being downgraded for owning derivatives that the ratings agencies told them were okay. This effect needs to be more fully examined. The NAIC said it's considering applying to the SEC to become a nationally recognized statistical rating organization, just like Moody's, Standard & Poor's, etc. The NAIC already rates some securities within insurance companies' investment portfolios that are not rated by the credit rating firms. They want to expand their credit rating services now to the general market. Some news from London that the Jubilee Managing Agency has announced the appointment of Andreas Loukaitis, the former CEO of Catlin UK, as Director of Underwriting. The bulletin noted that he'll play a key role in the company's growth and expansion plans by identifying underwriting opportunities and new business areas. Mr. Loukaitis has held senior positions previously with PRI Group, which was acquired by Brit, and Markel Syndicate Management. In Sweden, a nuclear reactor was closed down for safety this morning after cracks were found in control rods at an identical plant. This according to the Swedish Radiation Safety Authority. The agency said it had been alerted last week after a routine annual inspection at the Oskarshamn nuclear plant in eastern Sweden had turned up cracks in the reactor's control rods, which are used to control the rate of fission of uranium and plutonium. Oskarshamn 3 remains closed for further inspections. The agency felt the finding was so disturbing that it ordered all boiling water reactors in Sweden, 6 of them, to hand in reports by Thursday of this week to indicate whether they've observed similar problems. They, as a result, announced that Forsmark 3, also on the East Coast, was closed down so they could see if they have the same problem, and that's because the 2 reactors are in principle identical, this according to the agency. Here's something you probably didn't know. There are oil wells in Ohio. Unfortunately, 2 men have been killed in a pair of explosions at a central Ohio oil well. Authorities say the 2 men were doing some welding on an oil storage tank on the property Sunday afternoon when there was one huge explosion followed by another. The Marion County Sheriff says that the blast occurred near the town of LaRue. They were heard about 6 miles away. LaRue is about 60 miles northwest of the state capital of Columbus, Ohio. The Bermuda Gazette is reporting this morning that Bermuda-based oil producer Northern Offshore Limited has said that a fire broke out at one of its North Sea rigs. There were no injuries resulting from the blaze on the Energy Enhancer jackup rig owned by a subsidiary of Northern Offshore. The fire was contained and extinguished by the onboard fire control team. According to Northern Offshore, all 34 members of the rig crew were evacuated as a precautionary measure, and the rig should resume normal operations within a few days. Here's news that's not going to be received well in Beijing, but supporters of Taiwan independence have assaulted an envoy from Beijing during his visit to a Confucian temple in the southern Taiwanese city of Tainan. Zhang Mingqing, vice chairman of Beijing's Association for Relations Across the Taiwanese Strait, was pushed to the ground during the assault this morning as protesters shouted that Taiwan could not be subject to mainland rule. Pictures of the assault were broadcast on Taiwan TV. It showed about a dozen protesters surrounding the envoy before knocking him to the ground while shouting pro-independence slogans at him. He was then helped to his feet by an escort and rushed into a waiting vehicle. No word yet from mainland China, but it won't be good. Here's an interesting story. This comes from Iowa City, Iowa. A judge has ordered a woman to stay away from her fiancé. This just 2 weeks before their wedding. Johnson County, Iowa Judge Stephen Gerard ordered 23-year-old Rucha Patel last night not to have contact with the man she was charged with domestic abuse causing injury. The name of the fiancé was not released. Apparently, according to Iowa City Police, Ms. Patel drove over the man's foot and then bit his hand when he took her keys away to prevent her from driving Monday in Iowa City. It was not known why he tried to stop Ms. Patel. Ms. Patel then told the judge that the marriage was scheduled for 2 weeks. Attempts to reach Ms. Patel at her home were not answered. Apparently, it's up to the alleged victim to determine whether or not charges are going to be pressed, and she hasn't decided yet. So we'll keep our eyes on this, find out whether or not we have any more information. It could be one of those arranged marriages. We don't know. That's all the news that we have today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching.